Hi everyone, it's Will. Now, if you find yourself struggling with overthinking and take every thought that comes into your mind as the truth, you are not alone. I've been there too, and it can still happen to me at times. And in this video, you're going to learn some tools for recognizing when your thoughts are misleading you so you can spend less time overthinking and more time taking action. Now, quick note, as someone who is 24 years old, I think one of the biggest challenges for a lot of people in this stage of life is trying to navigate everything on their own, and having people around you to push you to stay consistent, to think bigger and continue growing can make a huge difference, especially during periods of uncertainty. And that is a big reason why communities like the 20s mentorship roadmap school community can be so valuable. So if you're looking for more accountability, more support, and a group focused on career growth, relationships, and personal development, you can check out the description to the free community in my bio, and I also mention it in the description below. Now, back to what we were discussing earlier, today's world is filled with abundance of information, abundance of perspectives, abundance of career paths, and these are all amazing assets in their own right. And what I'm learning is that a lot of times, for every great thing that we're faced with, there can also be a drawback to it. And for every drawback on the other side of it, there can be something great. And I think the amount of information that we're given today, the resources that we are provided at our fingertips, it allows us to learn about things in a much quicker, more efficient way than ever before. You know, my dad mentioned that when he was younger and he wanted to find information or the answer to a question, he'd have to go to the library and find out that answer. Now today, you don't need to do that. You can just look it up on your phone, very quick, very simple. And we have access to that expertise, to those opportunities, and the ways of thinking that can lead to more opportunities than we could have imagined, which is great. But again, with that access to information can come some drawbacks. We can be presented with so much information that we get information overload, analysis paralysis, constant comparison, and fear of making the wrong choice. And there have been times where I've researched something and then found two contradicting points, and then all of a sudden my mind goes to, I don't know what to decide. What is the best option? If I choose one thing and that doesn't work out, I will pay the consequences because of it. And especially with social media, one area that has provided tremendous value but also leaves me feeling very behind is sometimes in the self-development space, because you might enjoy watching different videos because you're committed to personal growth and you have 5 to 10 people that you watch on a consistent basis. And each of them might have different pieces of advice for how to live a successful and happy life. And as you continue to watch more and more videos, you become overwhelmed and start thinking, well, this person says do this to be happy, and this person says that to be happy. And then if you aren't implementing every single piece of advice from all of these people, then you feel like you're falling behind. I've been there so many times. And I think one of the deceiving things about thinking so much is that we can sometimes mistake it for progress. So we believe that if we think enough, it will lead to more certainty. And our weighing of options feels as though we're doing the actual work, when in reality, being able to make one decision, even if we aren't certain that it's the right one, will set up the course for us to learn and grow by doing. And I think we live in an interesting time where there are a lot of social media posts that are curated and make things seem like they happened overnight, and we compare the feelings that we're experiencing on the inside to how other people seem to be on the outside. But then what also is unique is we have a lot of people who aren't afraid to open up about mental health challenges, how they're growing, how they're learning on social media. So I think transparency and curated personas exist side by side today, which is really interesting. So if we put a lot of focus on people that seem to have those perfect lives, the thought of needing to be perfect before starting will begin to rule us. And that is what can leave us in a place of the constant thinking cycle before ever even starting. Whereas if we recognize that sometimes what we see on the internet and social media are just perceptions, we can begin to realize that we no longer need to be focused on being perfect. We can start without having all the answers and make mistakes along the way. So if you find yourself struggling with overthinking, here are some tools to help you. First off, if you are in a place where you're being exposed to different sources of advice that all seem to be conflicting, at a certain point, being able to look inward and say, yes, these are all potential solutions for me, but what is it that I really want? Because I've been there before too, seeking 15 different people's advice, and then the last person that I listen to is myself. But being able to ask yourself the question, well, what do I want? Help simplify it. It's a lot easier to compare yourself to who you were yesterday than to compare yourself to all these other people, because if you compare yourself to others, you're always going to find someone who is further along or better at something than you are. And because of that, you might always feel behind. So when we're faced with overthinking, although it can be difficult, sometimes being able to look inward and just ask yourself, what do I want, makes things easier to digest. Another trick that's been helpful for me, that can be for you, is to use past experiences as references. Chances are, if you're worrying about something, you've worried about something similar in the past, and you might have gotten through it better than you have imagined. And being able to reference points to previous times where you ruminated and it didn't turn out as bad as you thought it would. And that can be a helpful way to calm yourself down in those moments. And then lastly is just being able to really ask yourself, is this true? Because a lot of times I'll be conjuring up so much in my head, and then when I reflect on it, none of it has actually happened in real life. It was all constructed in my mind. Now, this question doesn't always make it easier. It can be hard to let it go, even if you're asking yourself, is this true? But another thing that can help is being able to journal. And journaling, it takes subjective thoughts that are bouncing around in your head and turns them into objective lines written on a paper, which can allow you to see them for what they are and evaluate whether they are helping you or hurting you. So as you reflect on your own rumination, just recognize that you're not alone. I'm someone who navigates this as well. And if you can take some of the tools I suggested to you today, that can lead you in the right direction to let some of those unnecessary thoughts subside. Now, if you want to learn more about rumination and how to free yourself from all of that overthinking, there's a chapter about it in the 20s Mentorship Roadmap free school community located in my bio. And if you're interested, please feel free to check it out. We would love to have you join. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.